My name's Will Webb, born and raised in Detroit. Started DJing at about the age of 14, and then used to go and watch Jeff Mills, the Wizard, play all the time, and pretty much self-taught myself by watching him. Started producing in the early 90s. Got my first drum machine somewhere in 88, 89 range. One of those Roland RD8s, the whole self-contained drum machine. Throwing parties. I threw the first rave, the Holy Rave, back in 92, the weekend of Easter, and I beat out Underground Resistance by about a day. We threw our party on that Saturday before Easter, and they threw it on Easter Sunday. So I'm technically the first ever rave promoter in Detroit. And then from there, just started throwing raves and going to raves and playing raves and playing warehouse parties and whatnot. And then it just kind of progressed into making music and DJing and producing electro and techno. First thing I released was Indo Vacuum on Sean Deason's Matrix label. That was like a straight 4/4 techno track, but then I went ahead and did a remix of that and did an electro remix, and that came out on Direct Beat, which was part of Underground Resistance at the time. The Spacewalk was that was 95, and that was on Direct Beat. That was my first full-length EP with Boomin', and Boomin' actually got picked up by Chemical Brothers for one of their mixed compilations they did. They picked up that track on that. In addition to that, they had me come tour with them for a while and do their first North American tour. I was one of the opening DJs. Yeah, that's when I started getting into production mainly, was like in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. And since then, I've just been steadily releasing stuff. And we ended up doing about 3,000 people for the very first party. And it was a mix of everybody. It was a mix of people from the suburbs. I mean, we promoted the hell out of it, and we called it the Holy Rave, and we just packed it out, and it was crazy. It was strictly about the music. It wasn't about like being flashy and having fancy names and stuff. And there were no faces to techno. It was supposed to be a faceless genre. It was, the music was supposed to speak for itself. Going to something like that where it was all techno all night, because most of the clubs, even the underground clubs like Shelter and City Club and places like that, they played a mix of everything. I mean, you went to a nightclub and there were no genre breakdowns. It was all considered alternative. So you heard Depeche Mode, and then you heard Strings of Life, and then you heard Ministry, and then you heard Front 242, and then you hear Eric B. and Rakim, and then Alfred Haza, and it was just a mix of all types of music, and it was all considered underground music at the time. Techno had been produced long before we threw that rave. I mean, they were Juan and Derek and those guys were making records long before that. So the Cybertron stuff had come out in the 80s, and Strings of Life and all that kind of stuff. That stuff came out a lot earlier than the first rave. I mean, just getting anything out on vinyl was a proud moment. I mean, releasing my first record was a proud moment. Putting stuff out for the public to hear is always a proud moment. I mean, I still love releasing tracks to get people's feedback and see what they think. And I don't know if I ever look at it as proud moments. I just love doing it. I love making music, and I love DJing, and it's kind of like, yeah, I'm proud of my accomplishments, but it's not really what it's about. It's about the music and having fun doing it and making people dance and having fun watching people have fun from what you do. The most satisfying thing is people enjoying what you do, whether that's DJing or producing music or whatever.